în economia partidei. Delgado acolo este, va fi corner, dragi ascultători.
Hello, welcome back to Valverde. Here we are joined by great minister of open shirts and TP enthusiast, the great Brad Watson. Say hello.
Hello.
And I am, of
wonderful
course,
to be here.
Duncan Casey. You know, it's just quite a South African sounding name. Not South African, fucking South American. What am I talking about? I don't know. Oh, good day. How are you? Yes, good to see you. Today, Brad and myself are going to talk about a film we're very passionate about, we like a lot, on its own terms. Forrest Gump. Yes. So, 1994
94, yes.
came out, obviously at the time, I mean, it was a big deal, right? I mean, it swept
This
the
was
board
back in.
Oscars.
This was back. I mean, it's funny with all the discussions about Oscars now and the mucking around with the idea of a best popular film Oscar and all that stuff, and everyone's going, well, the Oscars should be, rewarding movies, being less snobby about rewarding movies and that. Like, this was a period where the big movies, big successful movies, were winning Best Picture Oscars. This is that era where you had the likes of Forrest Gump, you had the likes of Titanic, and you had the likes of these big, didn't happen every year, but they were always in the mix.
It was very much, I think, an era of chance taking. Something that, and we'll go over the plot in a sec, but something that struck me about seeing kind of behind the scenes stuff and all that kind of thing is just how much it struck me, the last time I watched it, because it's all been sort of released on YouTube now, and you've got Tom Hanks, before he was even, because obviously he took the accent from the kid, so that wasn't even in place.
No.
You know what I mean? And you kind of watching this thing, and it could so easily have just been a Tom Hanks vehicle.
Yep.
And you just go, what? Like, no one's... it's a great thing. I really love this about it. But it's that thing of like, it really was like, we're just finding it as we go.
Well, Hanks said in an interview, he said we're sitting there, we're shooting the stuff on the bench. That was when he first really got to grips with the character and the accent, and it was all coming out. And he said that between takes, he turned to Bob Zemeckis and said, Bob, is this going to work? and apparently Bob Zemeckis' response was, it's a razor edge. We're traversing a razor edge here. And that was it. He was just well aware of this very fine line he was traversing, and this is why I love the film. Why I think it's brilliant, and why Bob Zemeckis will always be in my top, ham cluster of directors that of all time, because it's handled so deftly, so confidently. It just commits to this really bizarre, almost fantasy, slightly heightened reality line, and just goes for it.
Well,
it's amazing.
It seems like such a confident film. I mean, that's the weird thing. I mean, like, because you look at a thing like that and you think, oh god, it'll be a shambles, but it's not. And like, everything seems so deliberate, and the comedy is so well judged in it. Yeah. It seems to me, anyway.
There's some of the best bits of comic timing in this film. We'll go into some details later, but it's just fantastic.
Yeah. So why don't you give us a rundown of the plot then?
The plot. The plot's about a guy that's not very smart, and he changes the world. Actually, he doesn't. He changes characters around him, so essentially the plot is, as everyone knows, is we catch up with this guy sitting on a bench waiting for a bus, and he starts to tell his life story to all these people, and we go back, and he just encounters. It's basically a history of America, that's for sure. In fact, again, Robert Zemeckis always said that he never thought for a second this movie would hit outside of America.
Really?
He always assumed this is just an American movie because it's about the history of America.
Yeah,
he's like, why would anyone else? He said he didn't realise was the heart and soul that the film was going to translate across the world. Yeah. So it's essentially a bit of a history of America through the eyes of this simple guy.
Dullard.
Yes, who's trying to choose the right words. Oh, where do we go? He's not incredibly smart guy, but he's ruled by his heart basically, and he's and he also doesn't, because of his simplicity is not so much of a handicap because he basically cuts through all the bullshit of life.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? He sees everything you need to see in life.
Yeah.
He's completely like, all that background noise is turned out. And he follows Jenny, really. I mean, he follows his heart, like you say. And that's where it all, that's.
I mean, there's a thing. I mean, is that enough of the plot, or do we need to do more?
No, I'm sure people have seen it. If you haven't,
but basically, but one of the things now, one of the reasons that I'm quite passionate about talking about this film is because I used to get in, and I still do, get into some debates about this film,
right?
Because at the time, all the people that were too cool for school, they hated Forrest Gump.
Well, that's something I wanted to come on to. There does seem a lot of backlash
yeah.
against it now.
Because in the same year you had Pulp Fiction, and you had things like that. All the cool kids like that. Forrest Gump was the schmaltzy thing that was that all the Americans liked, and we shouldn't like it because we're too cool for it. And so, which I rejected straight off the bat because I just think that the filmmaking on display in Forrest Gump is mind-blowingly wonderful, and that's what I responded to first of all. And then of course you watch it more and you get into the details. But one of the big things that the critics of the film constantly seem to roll out is this idea that the film supports conformatism, that it supports that Forrest Gump, conforms, and that's why he whereas all the other characters that rebel get buggered around and die or whatever, and I've always said that's
exactly the opposite.
Exactly the opposite.
Yeah,
because Forrest, all he does is he follows his heart.
Yeah.
He does not. He doesn't intellectualize anything. He follows his heart, and he does do what he's told when it's when he feels it's right, or he's not sure what he's doing, so he just does what people tell him and he does it. But as soon as he has to make a moral decision, as soon as he does, he forgets what people tell him. It's he was told by Jenny to run if he gets into trouble, which in Vietnam. Astonishing sequence, and he does. But as soon as he realizes he's left his friends, boom, goes back in, and then he's being constantly ordered at by Lieutenant Dan to leave him and to not go back in there and not go in and get other people, and he just ignores it and just keeps going. And I'm sitting. So when people are throwing that argument to me, I'm like, what did you see that part of the film? But it is something that people who want a stick to beat the film with constantly come out with, and I'm just like, I'm sorry, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
But
I agree. I mean,
because Jenny in a way is conforming, and Lieutenant Dan is conforming. Because it's all about what do you consider conforming. Jenny is she's conforming to her peers at the time.
She succumbs to peer pressure.
Yeah, right? Exactly. And she's doing where that generation felt they should be going and all that. Lieutenant Dan is conforming to his own sense of predetermined destiny, and he's conforming to that. And that's why those two.
Well, and his world falls apart when his destiny doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. It completely falls apart. And so I always saw it that way. Film, of course, subjectivity is subjectivity, and you can see different things in movies. But to me, that was quite clear.
Oh yeah. And I mean, I think it's you could see it as a simplistic tale of like, follow your heart, do the right thing, and you'll get the rewards. But everything that happens to Forrest is kind of by coincidence. But you get the impression that he would be just as happy sat on his porch, loving Jenny, loving his, son and all that stuff, without any of that money, without any of that, all those adventures. Yeah. It's like they're incidental to who he is as a person, and that, I mean, I've watched it with you. We cry. That film makes me bawl like a baby towards the end, man. Yep. And obviously one of the main places that happens is, and it's one of the first times you see that sort of self-awareness in him, is when he finally sees his own son, and, and he says, "Is he smart or is he?"
And he just does that.
Oh man, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's things like, there's examples in it, even like when he's literally grabbed and thrown up in front of everyone out in front of the Lincoln Memorial, whatever it is, and he's told to speak about Vietnam, man, and he's just like, well, Vietnam, and you never, because that person, that protester rips all the cause, and he probably just stood up there and went, "There's big old fat rain," and stuff like that, and probably said something completely like silly,
completely
and then it's like, "That's what I think of that," and then the guy's like, Pop's Gump!
And it
was like, "Hey!"
Yeah,
And
yeah.
again, it's such a great way of sort of highlighting what, like
Yeah.
you say, all the bullshit,
Yeah.
and couldn't be more relevant now.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, it's wonderful. You pointed out some great things about it as well, and I love films that, and Zemeckis is one of the masters of this. Is you know, having these consistent little things for you to look for, like you said about the fact that like in every photograph he's got his eyes closed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good.
And I suppose one could pick an allegory out of that if you wanted to. That he's kind of blind to something. I don't know.
Or he's just an idiot.
Stupid idiot. Yeah. But it's funny. It's just, for me, it's a wonderful place to spend time. I don't know about you, but it's the kind of film where I love putting on. It's so unique. I mean, it falls into the same sort of category for me as something like Lebowski does. Obviously, very different films, but they're just great places to spend time and kind of get into and just digest.
Yeah.
You know?
You just like spending time with those guys and those characters, and in that film world and that filmmaking, it's like a warm blanket. But to me that's how it feels. But I think it's incredibly smart film, and it's virtuoso filmmaking. Because I remember sitting in the cinema while watching that for the first time, and the only reason I went to see it was because it was Robert Zemeckis, the guy that and I was because I was a fan by then. Obviously Back to the Future's, particularly Roger Rabbit, and I was always a massive defender of Death Becomes Her, which now people were regarding as quite a classic. But at the time, people hated it.
Really?
People didn't like it. It was too weird, but I thought it was brilliant. But so I was always going to see what Bob Zemeckis had next, and I had no idea what this film was going to be. Back in the days when you didn't have YouTube clips coming at you every time you sneezed, and So this thing just unfurled in front of me, and the second it started, as soon as you're following that feather around, the Alan Silvestri scores coming, I was like, I'm in Zemeckis land again. I just had this overwhelming warm feeling of, and I could feel his hands on the reins, and I thought, this could be quite special.
He's someone, he's someone who definitely, like, I think you're right on that. And it's funny, like, a Zemeckis film very much has that feeling about it, but he's very adaptable. It's not like it's not quite the same. Cameron, Nolan, their stamp is very. Even though they do play in different genres, kind of, but I mean, certainly someone like Cameron, it's very much that thing.
Yeah.
Whereas Zemeckis seems very adaptable in terms of what he's doing, but I know what you mean. It's more the feeling you get from it.
Yeah.
Have you, because it's adapted from a book, right?
Yeah.
So have you read the book?
Yeah, no, I haven't. I haven't read the book. Which I hear is fairly different. Or there's different things in it. I think he goes into space at one point.
Yeah, a bit like Homer in space. Yeah.
I hope he gets thrown into space by Lou Ferrigno as Hercules. But, no, but I think I might be wrong there.
Oh, it's not very nice, Lou.
I might be wrong there, but someone might go nuts at me because I'm just like, what are you talking about? But I believe I heard that. So I haven't read the book, so I don't really know. Okay. But it sounds like that this would be one of those books that everyone's like, oh, you can't make that into a film.
Well, I mean, I haven't read it either, but you look at the film and you go, so much of this is visual, so much of it's cinematic storytelling that you think it can't be that close to a book. I'm sure the book's great, but to make those kind of points, it requires so much of that kind of stuff. But it's things like all the flashback stuff where they're injecting Forrest into, which nowadays you can kind of see the joins a little bit, but I remember back then
at the time that was amazing. But for me, because again, this was quite a very exciting period of filmmaking, technology-wise, because you had the likes of Zemeckis and Cameron and Spielberg, all grasping this new technology, digital technology, and using it amazing and showing you stuff you'd never seen before. Unfortunately, it then ushered in an era where we're bombarded with this stuff. But this was stuff where you literally were just gasping at what you saw. And when Gary Sinise reveals he's got no legs, everyone in the cinema was, what? I mean, it blew everyone's mind. Totally rightly won the Oscar for visual effects. But it's even though they're spectacular, amazing effects, they're still kind of invisible. It's like if you didn't know that it was an effect happening, you wouldn't really know. If you didn't know that Gary Sinise really has legs, you'd be like, wow, they got a paraplegic guy to do that. But it's all storytelling effects.
Well, it speaks to what I think is one of the best things about the film, which is that it's truly a character-driven film.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, and that's why there's so much heart involved, and that's why, like a character like Lieutenant Dan is just, again, heartbreaking. And he's someone actually who, you know, I know it's Forrest Gump's story, but like you say, it's about how he affects people. And Lieutenant Dan, his arc is so centric around.
I would say like obviously the moment where he meets his son for the first time always brings tears to my eyes. But the other part that without fail brings tears to my eyes is just that little smile between them both when Lieutenant Dan turns up at his wedding.
Yeah.
And they go, and Lieutenant Dan's obviously been on a whole journey that we haven't seen as well, because he's got his fiancée who's a Vietnamese lady and all that stuff. So he's obviously gone on some
Lieutenant
kind of
Dan.
and he's like Lieutenant
You
but then
dog.
but then they just turn at each other, and Forrest just goes like that, and Lieutenant Dan just this genuine smile. Oh my God,
it's the
so
apex,
good.
and once you've seen it as well, it's all the more bittersweet because you know that that's like the apex of them. That they're both in their heaven right now. That they're both, you know, he made it. He's got his magic legs.
Yeah.
And you know, and he's married, and it's like, and he's clawed his way back. You know, he doesn't look like a hobo anymore. You know, and it's like, and he's made something of himself, and he's got a proper destiny now.
Yeah.
And it's like. And then all Forrest ever wanted was to be with Jenny, you know, and it's like, and it's his wedding day, and it's just, but then you've got that thing where it's like the film could so easily end there, but it's like, then we have to kick Forrest in the dick one more time, you know, and it's just, that's another bit where I pulled my eyes out when I was talking to Jenny's grave.
Yeah. Oh man.
God, you know.
Yeah. But the interesting thing about that scene is, if you notice, when he's talking to Jenny, and again, when he goes, he's so smart, he's talking about his son, and he starts welling up, and oh my God. But it's when he goes, and he says to her, you know, I don't know, I'm not sure what's correct, whether my mum's correct and everything's random, or if Lieutenant Dan's correct and we're, when he said, but then for the very first time, he goes, but I think.
Yeah.
And the second he does that, and the Sylvester's strings start coming in, you're like, oh my God, it's like this, and suddenly you realise that's the apex of the movie. Is he just has a thought for himself, you know? He's seen the world, and he's got his own opinion now, and it sounds so trite and simple when you talk about it, but it's the magic of the film just makes it work. It's wonderful,
and that's why it just feels like such a cohesive piece.
Yeah.
And there's so much to unpack from it, and so much to. Or you can enjoy it on a surface level, or you can, you know, but it is such a rich film, and yet it doesn't have this. But do you think the film is saying, because obviously we open and we bookend it with the feather, is that Zemeckis' way of saying, I mean, I suppose the question is, was that feather just randomly landing there, or was it destined to land in the...
That's absolutely what that is. It's Zemeckis going, here's a literal sort of... your decision, audience. What is this? Is this feather random, or is this feather choosing where it's going to go?
And isn't that the fucking
the
thing
moment it just touches that guy on the shoulder and then goes, you know, it's so good.
Yeah, no, I mean, but that's the whole point of life, is that we spend so long sort of going like, is this you know, all these things, are they preordained? Are they not? Like, and if you're just Forrest Gump, if you just let them happen to you, look at and just follow the things you love, like that's I guess the message is that you know,
absolutely. But it's just full of one. But you know, that's the overall thing. But you know, but then when you get into the minutiae of the filmmaking, you know, down to the level of how the shots are constructed and how is all that. To me, it's perfection. It's wonderfully shot, and the staging and the gags, like the comedy is amazing. The comic timing is amazing. It's like one of my favourite bits of comic timing is when we first meet Forrest as an adult, and the guys are and he runs, and they're chasing him in the van. But it's when and he heads into the football field, and we have this tracking shot running along with the footballers as they're running, and as a guy, you know, collects a pass, and we're tracking with them, and then Forrest overtakes them, like that, just to show that he's faster than them. And we just stop with the guy who's stopping, and it's like boom, he gets taken out. It's just the timing of that is so good.
They also do that thing as well, where he's running away from the car, and clearly, because it's on a big crane shot, or whatever, and he runs, and whoever, I guess they've got a stunt guy waiting in the field because like he runs out of shot, and then the camera follows around, and then suddenly he's like miles down the field because there's clearly someone else.
But the way it plays with reality, the way it treads this heightened, almost cartoonish.
But it's a story being told, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
That's and it comes back to something we said when we were talking about Get Shorty was the thing of like, you know, at least the first sort of 2/3 are someone retelling a story.
Yeah.
And because he even says, you wouldn't believe it. Look at me, he's like, I can run as fast as the wind blows. And then it's like, so it's his version of that happening, right?
No,
so it's kind of,
absolutely.
Albeit, you know, obviously we see it in much greater detail, but you know, it's like.
So, because I think you find that that heightened reality kind of ceases
after
when we're not in the flashbacks anymore.
Yeah.
That it just plays normally.
Yeah.
That kind of playing with reality doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
So it is totally because the license to do that, because it's his tale. He's telling this tale, and it's him visualizing it and all that stuff. But you know, things like, you know, if you know the way he's, you know, when he sees Lieutenant Dan and he jumps off the ship.
Yeah.
Goes, the shot where he's swimming, and that's obviously a double, like going like that, and he disappears, and then he's up
suddenly up the ladder,
and then the boat comes in,
takes out the pier.
Yeah. So, but you know, things like that, the reality, the way it plays with reality, and again, it's such a tricky line to traverse and to get right,
and the deftness of like, I mean, Lieutenant Dan's one of my favourite. Like, I think he's like Gary Sinise absolutely nails that character. It's like, for some reason, one of the bits that makes me laugh the most is when it's New Year's, and we're kind of tracking across like a bar or whatever, and you just hear him go, "Shrimping boats? Who gives a shit about shrimping boats?" and he's, because you just imagine like Forrest has just been laying out this thing earnestly to him about like a joke about bubble. And yet, who gives a shit? And all the way along, he's defying Forrest constantly, and Forrest is defying him, and yet, look at the beautiful thing happens. I really think it's a film that if you haven't seen in a long time, and your head is just full of all the kind of cliched things about it, you know, all the kind of Tropic Thunder piss taking, full retard, never go full retard things. I think it's like reevaluate, go back and reevaluate. If it's something that, like, for me, it came out when I was 10, and I picked it up kind of when I was 13, I want to say, like in the late 90s when it was on TV and stuff. I recorded it, I watched it. And I loved it on so many levels then, and then like as I've gotten older, I've realised kind of what the heart is about and what it's all about. And I actually think it's a film that I think it's a beautiful way to watch it from a younger age to an older age, like to sort of realise.
See more in it. There's so much that you see every time you watch it. Just through virtue of watching it again, you see so much, because like a Zemeckis movie is always packed. But as you say, if you're watching it at different stages of your own maturity, you see so much more happening, and it evolves as a film as well for you. It's and that's what more do you want from a movie? You know, I mean, it's that's what we all strive for.
Yeah.
As filmmakers, we want to create something. We want to create something that's entertaining, that has a cinematic spectacle, but also deals with a very human, you know, small scale, emotional core, and getting that all to work together is kind of what you're always striving to do as a filmmaker in whichever genre. You're trying to do that. And
Hallows Eve on Netflix, folks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why not?
To me, it's just an example of that, of it just working, that working, and the magic of filmmaking. And no one could have played it other than Tom Hanks. I mean, I can't think of anyone that could have done it.
I mean,
made it work.
I don't think if someone said, "Give me your dream casting," or like recast Forrest Gump, like what? Like it was an example of definitely like a kind of perfect storm or whatever of stuff at the time. Again, as was Big Lebowski, there was so much stuff like that seems to, and I don't know if it's because that I was of a certain age then, or if I'm just looking back on this fondly, but I don't think so. I think it was a much richer sort of time to tell stories and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I would say so, definitely.
Yeah. So there you go, folks. I think that's about time. Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump.
Yes. Yeah, go back and
it.
watch it. It's
please
incredible.
Do give it. Yeah, if you like you said, if you've seen it once a long time ago and then you're like, oh yeah, that's that film, revisit it, watch it again. It's wonderful. Please.
Until next time, goodbye. Was that about half an hour?
That was actually really shit, lads. Could you do it all again?